I want you to just picture this for a moment. It's Tuesday, February 3rd, 2026. You're in Tehran.
Okay.
And if you were to look towards the northwest of the city, towards the Janat Abad neighborhood, you wouldn't just be seeing the regular skyline.
No, you'd be seeing smoke. A lot of it.
A huge, thick column of black smoke just choking the sky.
It's a really striking image to start with. We're talking about a fire that just tore through a major market, 2,000 square meters.
200 stalls, just gone.
Livelihoods, goods, all of it. And that image, that fire, it feels like so much more, doesn't it?
It's the perfect physical metaphor for the political inferno that's engulfing the whole country.
It really is. Because normally, a regime like this, they deal with threats one at a time. You play whack-a-mole.
Right, you put out one fire, then you move to the next.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But what's happening right now in Iran is it's unique. It's a simultaneous maximum intensity squeeze from two directions.
You've got what we can call the internal combustion, the protests, the collapsing economy, and then this external squeeze.
A superpower armada just sitting off the coast.
And that's really the core question for our deep dive today. How does a government possibly survive when it's being squeezed by its own people in the streets and by the U.S. Navy at sea?
That is the puzzle. And to understand it, we have to start on the ground with that fire you mentioned.
The Janat Abad market. So there's verified footage of this huge blaze. Traffic on the highway next to it just slows to a crawl. But the official government line.
Ah, yes, the official line.
They came out almost right away. It's under control. No injuries reported.
Which is standard procedure. Control the story first.
Sure.
But the reaction from the public tells you everything you need to know.
Total distrust.
Complete distrust. When a government loses that much credibility, even a simple market fire becomes, a symbol of its incompetence or part of some conspiracy.
It just feeds this feeling that the whole country is literally falling apart. And this fire, it isn't happening in a vacuum. It comes right after what was arguably the worst unrest in decades.
We have to talk about January. The January 2026 protests. That's the context for the internal panic.
And the numbers are just terrifying, especially when you see the discrepancy. The government itself is admitting to over 3,000 deaths.
Which, on its own, is a staggering number.
But that's the floor. That's the lowest possible number. When you look at groups like the Human Rights Activists News Agency, they've confirmed over 6,400 dead.
And that includes 152 children.
And some other estimates go even higher. Iran Human Rights is suggesting the toll could be more than 25,000.
Just let that number sink in. 25,000, that's not a protest anymore.
No.
That is the casualty count of a medium-sized war. It means the fear barrier has completely shattered.
You don't lose that many people and just go home. The anger has totally replaced the fear.
If you are enjoying this video, please watch it until the end. It helps the channel a lot and encourages us to continue our work.
So the regime has this fire raging inside the house. They look out the window and see their own people willing to die for change.
Now let's look out the other window, out at the ocean. Let's talk about that external squeeze.
This is the other side of the vice. The USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group is in the region. And it's not just the carrier, is it?
No, and that's a detail that often gets lost. A carrier strike group is a full-on armada. You've got the carrier, which is basically a floating airbase.
You've got guided missile destroyers.
Right, with the Aegis combat systems. You've got attack subs. It's a package that can, frankly, erase a country's air defenses in a single afternoon.
So this isn't about containment. The message here is compulsion.
It's a loaded gun on the negotiating table. And you have to remember, this isn't just a threat. The bombs have already fallen once this year.
People forget that. The news cycle moves so fast, but the 12-day war back in June, that was real. Operation Midnight Hammer.
It wasn't a warning shot. It was a series of targeted strikes on 3 Iranian nuclear facilities.
Yeah.
So Tehran isn't guessing if the U.S. is willing to strike.
They know they are. They have the craters to prove it.
And now you have a U.S. President, Donald Trump, who is a big believer in the madman theory of foreign policy.
The old Nixon strategy, make your opponent think you're just unpredictable enough to do anything.
Exactly. It changes the entire calculation. You can't bluff a person if you think they're willing to just flip the entire table.
So let's put ourselves in their shoes. In the Iranian leadership's shoes, streets are on fire, maybe 25,000 dead. The U.S. Navy is parked off your coast. What on earth do you do?
You pivot. You have to. You start looking for a diplomatic off-ramp before you run out of road.
Which brings us to today's breaking news. This is the big headline. The Iranian president, Masoud Pezeshkian, has ordered his foreign minister to pursue. And these are his words. Fair and equitable negotiations with the U.S.
That is a massive change in tone. A few weeks ago, it was all defiance. Now the words are dignity and prudence. It's pure survival instinct.
And the talks are apparently being set up for this Friday in Istanbul.
Istanbul is the neutral ground. And you have this scramble of mediators, Turkey, Qatar, Egypt, Oman, all trying to make it happen.
Because everyone in the region is terrified of what happens if these talks fail.
Absolutely. But this is where it gets really complicated. Because when we say Iran is negotiating, you have to ask, which Iran?
Right. It's not a monolith.
Far from it. What we're seeing is a classic power struggle inside the leadership. It's almost a good cop, bad cop routine.
So on one side, you've got President Pezeshkian, the reformist.
He's the good cop.
Yeah.
He ran on fixing the economy. He knows that without sanctions relief, the protests will eventually bring the whole system down. He needs this deal.
But then you have the other side, the deep state. Ali Shamkhani, the Supreme Leader's top advisor. Did you see his interview yesterday?
I did, and the optics were powerful.
He wasn't wearing a suit. He wasn't in clerical robes.
No, he was in his full admiral's naval uniform.
It's not a subtle message.
It's a megaphone.
Mm.
He's reminding everyone, the U.S., the protesters, maybe even his own president, where the real power lies. And his words were very different.
He said talks will only be about nuclear issues, full stop.
Which is the core of the problem. Because the U.S. wants the whole package now. They have 3 demands.
1, end nuclear enrichment. 2, limit ballistic missiles. And 3, stop funding proxy groups across the Middle East.
And for the hardliners, for Shamkhani, points 2 and 3 are absolute red lines. Those missiles, those militias, that's their life insurance.
So the president needs a deal to save the economy, but the generals want to keep their weapons to save their power.
That's the deadlock. And that brings us to the analysis. If we look at this like a game board, there are really only 3 ways this can end.
Okay, let's treat this like a lesson in game theory. What's scenario 1?
Scenario 1 is forced compromise.
Which is a nicer way of saying surrender.
Pretty much, yeah. This is the scenario where the pressure campaign works. Iran takes the deal. They limit the nuclear program, the missiles, the regional influence, all of it, in exchange for sanctions relief.
That sounds incredibly humiliating for the regime.
It would be. The upside is it prevents a war, but internally, it could be a disaster. Think about it from the perspective of a protester on the street.
If you see your government brought to its knees by a foreign power,
Do you go home? Or do you smell blood in the water and push even harder?
you probably push harder. You see weakness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it might stop the bombs, but it might just fuel the internal fire.
Okay, so that's one path. What's scenario 2?
Scenario 2, controlled war.
Controlled sounds optimistic when you're talking about war with Iran.
It is. But the theory here is the Istanbul talks fail. The U.S. decides diplomacy is over. They launch coordinated airstrikes against leadership, missile sites, air defenses.
And Iran's response.
They retaliate. They hit shipping in the Gulf. They hit U.S. bases in the region. But here's the counterintuitive part. There are probably some hardliners in Tehran who might secretly want this.
Why would they possibly want to get bombed?
The rally around the flag effect.
Nothing unites a country like a common enemy.
Precisely. The narrative instantly changes from our government is corrupt to our nation is under attack. It becomes a patriotic struggle. It lets them blame all the country's problems on an external aggressor.
But the cost, the devastation to their infrastructure would be enormous.
It would set them back decades. But for a regime on the brink, ruling over rubble might seem better than not ruling at all.
Which leads us to the darkest possibility. Scenario 3.
Uncontrolled collapse.
This is the one that gives everyone in the region nightmares.
Yes. This is where both pressures, the external and the internal, become too much, and the regime itself just fractures. It breaks apart.
So the security apparatus turns on itself.
You could see the Revolutionary Guard fighting the regular army, different factions, different warlords carving up the country.
So this is not a peaceful transition to democracy.
It's a power vacuum. It looks like Libya after Gaddafi. It looks like Syria.
And this is a state with ballistic missile technology and nuclear material.
A failed state of 80 million people, right in the heart of the world's energy supply. It would be a humanitarian and geopolitical catastrophe beyond anything we've seen recently.
So to recap the lesson, compromise and be humiliated, fight a war and be devastated, or collapse into total chaos.
Not a great set of choices.
And what's so scary about this moment is the lack of any safety net. Usually there's some other power that can step in.
That's the no-brakes problem. Europe used to play that role, but they've been sidelined. They have very little influence here.
Russia's their ally, but...
Russia is completely bogged down in Ukraine. They don't have the resources or the political will to bail out Iran right now.
And China.
China's being extremely cautious. They want Iranian oil, but they do not want to get into a military conflict with the United States over it. They're watching from the stands.
So if the talks this Friday in Istanbul fail, there's no one coming to the rescue?
There's no plan B. The guardrails are gone.
That is an incredibly sobering thought.
It is. The stakes couldn't be higher.
So as we close out, I want to leave you with one final question to think about. It's really a question about survival. When a regime like this is pushed to the absolute brink, when it faces the choice between losing power to its own people or bowing to a foreign enemy to stay alive, which humiliation is easier to swallow?
That is the ultimate autocrat's dilemma.
Do you surrender to the armada to save your skin, or do you risk total annihilation just to maintain your pride? The answer to that will likely decide everything.
We'll be watching Istanbul very, very closely.
If the viewers enjoyed the lesson, they can subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell to be informed about new videos, press the like button, and share the video with colleagues as this helps us maintain the channel. Thank you.
Thank you.